Greetings, loved ones. Let's take a journey through the best-selling Y2K girly pop albums. These are curated albums from a list of 100 albums that I found on the internet that purport themselves to be the best-selling records of the 2000s. And the period of time that I'm discussing is 2000 to 2009. So it's a little bit beyond Y2K. There are some different definitions of what Y2K is and means. But for the purpose of this video, we're going to take it as the period of time between 2000 and 2009. My name is Zach. I'm a Swiftologist. I make thoughtful weekly videos. Welcome back to my channel. I have done a version of this video already for the 2010s pop girl records, but I wanted to go back to the beginning, as Hilary Duff might say in a song that I will definitely be talking about today, Come Clean. If you're watching this, I am probably on tour right now, evolutionofasnake.com for tour tickets and tour merchandise. I don't know exactly when this is going to go up, but it's going up at some point, okay? And I want to have a little chat about how I'm going to be ranking these today because people got very upset with my last ranking. So first of all, this is my personal ranking, okay? I will try to be objective insofar as I can, but at the end of the day, rankings are inherently subjective. So my personal opinion and biases are going to spill out. Something that simply must be noted, and I think is very important that I need to preface whenever I discuss Y2K music at all, is that I grew up in Singapore, okay? So a lot of these albums that I listen to, that I know and love, or that I missed and didn't get to hear or listen to came out pre-internet, pre-music being very accessible via internet, and also pre-me being old enough to access the internet independently and find stuff. So a lot of these records, a lot of these songs, a lot of these artists were shown to me by the powers that be on the actual traditional media. I know if you're young, it might be hard to understand, but there was a period of time when MTV Asia and the Singapore radio stations and That CD Shop, if you know what I'm talking about, it was literally called That CD Shop. Those were the three places where I could get music recommendations, and Rolling Stone magazine occasionally. But there was a period of time where, like, when I was like 9 and 10, I wasn't reading Rolling Stone. I was reading Tiger Beat and Kids Bop or whatever the hell it was called. So that is where I found most of my music. Now, what you will find in Singapore at that period of time, in Asia generally, I would actually venture a guess, but in Singapore specifically, from my experience, there was a heavy focus on white American artists, okay? There wasn't a huge diversity of genre or race in the pop idols and musicians that were presented to me via mainstream media. So R&B and hip hop was really something that I did not get very much exposure to, and I almost entirely had to experience as an adult afterwards. So a lot of these formative records, I'm thinking specifically of like the entire Alicia Keys discography, are things that I didn't grow up with and had to like retroactively research and do some understanding on. So that is really going to color my perception of what is a blueprint, what is still relevant. I might say something is irrelevant to me or I don't know anything about it, and it could be the most important album of the 21st century. I don't know. So I just want to preface that because I think it is an important kind of like context setter. I have filled in the gaps insofar as I can, but I'm focused on keeping up with contemporary music at the moment. So definitely some homework that I need to do after culling this list and seeing who I wanted to include. I didn't include all of the top 100. I basically just included the ones that I can speak about confidently, and also ones that I didn't want to leave out because I fear or I feel that they had an impression that maybe I didn't understand. Okay, so that's kind of where I'm coming at from this, trying to be as egalitarian as possible. The categories that we're ranking today, the MF Blueprint, these are going to be albums that I consider to be trend setters, albums that changed the course of pop music, either for pop girls or just for pop music in general. And then I have Still Relevant AF. So these are albums that, still sound fresh, still sound good. Maybe they weren't completely like genre redefining, but they were definitely important for what they did at that specific period of time that they came out. I'm Gonna Let You Finish is an album that I liked one or two songs from, but it didn't really stick with me. It didn't give me a huge or strong impression. I don't know about all that. Now, this might seem like a negative category because it's towards the end, but I'm pretty sure that I'm going to be using that almost exclusively for albums that I'm not very familiar with, okay? And then we have Who Cares, which is pretty self-explanatory, don't you think? Who frickin' cares? There are a couple of those albums here. There are a couple. But on the whole, in general, I found this to be an extremely, when I was looking back on it, progressive period of time for music, specifically for pop music. I think that men really got to like run the music industry in the 20th century specifically, especially with pop. And we really got to see female artists and female songwriters and female producers and female performers come into a different kind of limelight in the 21st century. There were good and bad aspects of that, which I will talk about about, I'm sure, as we go through all of these various impactful, groundbreaking, show-stopping, never been done before moments. But this period of time was a great addition to female diversity in the music industry. I love to see it. And it was also like what I was raised on, what I grew up on. So I grew up with so many like strong female role models. And when I look at this list, I feel so blessed and lucky that I got to grow up with this music and have these role models, because I think this is some of the best music in history. And that's on period. So Yesterday, greatest song of all time, better than anything the Beatles or the Rolling Stones ever put out. It's more likely than you think. Why don't we start out strong? Why don't we start out with something I can speak very confidently about, something that I'm passionate about, something that I love, something that is the MF blueprint, Lady Gaga, the Fame Monster. So I'm taking this to be the combination of the Fame and the Fame Monster, which was, the reissue of that album with 8 new songs. Was it 8 songs? I believe it was. It's the blueprint for so many reasons. Lady Gaga really built on the Madonna model of pop stardom, doing freakish and weird things, keeping up with trends and evolving very quickly with them while also maintaining a very specific artistic integrity and identity. And I think that Lady Gaga was such a breath of fresh air in the specific period of time that she came out, which was like 07, 08, when we were still very much in the thick of the overproduced and kind of stage managed pop girl of it all. We were, really kind of exiting the Britney Spears domination period. Blackout had come out, and although we know it was a cult classic, it was very quickly disregarded. And Lady Gaga really kind of filled a space, I think, of vacuous pop that had some sort of like artistic meaning behind it. And when Lady Gaga came out with this record, the marketing of it all was so intriguing for people. There were so many asinine layers of conversation around what she did that she deliberately, antagonized and provoked in the public. There was a lot of speculation that she was intersex, for example. And she really kind of like played up these things. And she also pushed back a lot on like very kind of gendered questions that would get thrown at her in press junkets and interviews. There are plenty of great compilations of her clapping back in a very intelligent way. I feel like also because Lady Gaga had an intentional rise to fame, and it happened to her when she was a little bit older than someone like Avril Lavigne or Britney Spears or a Jessica Simpson and Ashley Simpson, she had more time to really come to the table fully formed, and she had gotten a couple of things out of her system before she became the artist that we grew to know her as. And obviously her theatricality is something that is very essential and core to who she is, and definitely contributed to the layers of artifice that seemed to surround her. I just remember there being such a curiosity about like who Lady Gaga was, and why is she called Lady Gaga, and why is she doing all these weird things and wearing all these outrageous outfits, and why can't I recognize her? But also, why do I know exactly who it is when I see her rock up in, a different mask on the red carpet? There was something very familiar but also new about her, and I think it was familiar to an older generation. So like the millennials, I'd say, were probably like a little bit more familiar with Lady Gaga because of Mother Madonna being the forebear. But to me, Lady Gaga was like a brand new artist. Like I wasn't super familiar with the intricacies and the delicacies of the Madonna catalog. So I really took everything that Lady Gaga was doing as very groundbreaking. And at that point in my music journey, where had I been? I had been very much on an Avril Lavigne and a Hilary Duff, Michelle Branch. I had been on a Beyoncé kick. I really was into my like rock girls, and then I was into my Britneys, my pop divas. So Gaga kind of like fit somewhere in between those. She had this real musicality, like a song like Speechless, for example. She had this real musicality that also blended with this detached artifice, the fame as a concept, that was all very interesting, and it was very new, and it was very groundbreaking. And there are just so many great songs on this body of work, so many iconic hits. A song like, Just Dance may not have aged as well as a Bad Romance, but it's still a banger. It's still a song that makes people get up off their at a party, at a club, and move their damn feet. So Lady Gaga's The Fame Monster impact kind of like impossible to quantify properly. I think it's only becoming more pertinent now as mayhem has become this cultural phenomenon again and has reunited us with a lot of the things that we loved about Lady Gaga in the first place. So I have such a fond memory of this period of time because I felt like, and I didn't know it at the time because I was a young baby gay that was very scared to like be myself, but Lady Gaga really empowered me to be myself and to be fearless and unapologetic about who I was. Was I able to action that in my daily life at middle school? No. But I knew there was someone out there who was kind of rooting for me. And that was really important. And we really needed that at that specific period of time. So, Lady Gaga, congratulations. You are the diva. We've been knowing that. Up next, speaking of the divas, Aaliyah, her self titled album. This was unfortunately her last release before her very untimely death at the age of 22, I want to say. Now, Aaliyah is not someone that I was super familiar with in Singapore, again, because she just like wasn't really a presence on the radio or in music videos. Although I do remember the Try Again music video. I love that video. Aaliyah is like, she's such a revered icon of, I would say, pop R&B. And she was a girly who was really, really ahead of her time. And she had these curatorial instincts that made her, she wasn't necessarily like a writer or a producer in and of her own right, but she was a curator in the exact same way that Beyonce ended up becoming. And what's interesting is that her and Beyonce were, I guess, kind of coming out as solo artists at the same time. There's this like deranged conspiracy theory that like Beyonce had Aaliyah killed. But I think that Aaliyah kind of arrived because she started independently as an artist before Beyonce did. Beyonce was with Destiny's Child. I think Aaliyah kind of developed that curatorial taste a little bit sooner than Beyonce did. I would say Beyonce kind of really came into her own in terms of being like a conductor of her own musicianship in B-Day. That's really when I saw that coming to fruition. And that was maybe 5 years after Aaliyah's self-titled album came out. And there are so many iconic songs rock the boat on this record that when you listen to them, you realize there would be no Britney in the zone. There would be no Britney in the zone. There would be no Rihanna. There would certainly be no Beyonce without this kind of blueprint of music. And for so long, these records were like lost to the sands of time because her evil label was, you know, deliberately withholding her from streaming, and they actively harmed her legacy by keeping her away from the internet for so long. So when you hear people who were in the industry at the same time as Aaliyah, people who worked with her like Missy Elliott, she also worked with Timbaland. She was one of the first, I think, like pop girls to really get on board with that Timbaland sound and usher his production style, which was so iconic and so impactful into the mainstream. When you hear people of her milieu talking about her, they have such a reverence for her and her artistry. And I think there is such a tragedy, obviously, because, you know, she was really just gone too soon, did not by any stretch of the imagination get the chance to fulfill her excellence, her destiny, her legacy. But this was a profoundly impactful album and one that I had a real joy coming around to when I eventually got around to it. So I'm putting that in the blueprint because it was a blueprint. I'm looking at another blueprint here. And listen, there are 3 Avril Lavigne albums in the best-selling female albums of Y2K. The Best Damn Thing, Under My Skin, and Let Go. It's going to be difficult for me to decide which one went into the blueprint. I'm going to try and keep it to 1 per artist. I think that might be the fairest way to go about doing this. But Under My Skin, you know, Let Go was a blueprint in its own way. It did its own thing. Under My Skin was a blueprint in a completely different way. Like, I think that when Olivia Rodrigo is talking about her Avril Lavigne inspirations, I don't necessarily think that she's referencing Let Go. I think she's referencing the musical stylings of Under My Skin and The Best Damn Thing. Those 2 things kind of neck and neck. But Under My Skin really had like such iconic singles. And it was this combination of like a Michelle Branch and Alanis Morissette. Avril was really the anti-Britney, as we all know. She was, you know, I'm not going to wear those skanky clothes. I'm not going to make songs for guys, like who were guys to tell me or dictate how I should live my life. Avril had extreme pick-me energy. I would never really call Avril's early work feminist in a sense. It was in a way, in the sense that it was Avril Lavigne writing her songs and playing guitar and deliberately like not dressing for the male gaze, something very similar to what Billie Eilish has done. And she has cited Avril Lavigne as a blueprint. Again, I think that Under My Skin and Let Go are kind of the 2 diva blueprints there. Under My Skin, I'm going to have to put it in still relevant AF. I think of the 3 albums that Avril had in this top 100 list, Under My Skin was the lowest charting one. It was still in the top 100, obviously, but the other 2 were higher. But Under My Skin, God, that was a blueprint for me. It was a blueprint for me. This is my favorite Avril record. Definitely go and check out my video about it if you haven't seen it. I have an entire video waxing poetic about why I think this album is incredible, and you should go and watch it. Tattoo. Oh my God. 200 kilometers per hour. Is that what that album was called? Tattoo is one of the most bizarre phenomenons of pop girldom in the 2000s. And like specifically at like the midpoint, I would say like 2003 to 2006, there was a trend of groups, acts, I would say, being produced to cater to the male gaze, which is a very interesting way to go about conducting a pop legacy. And I think this was a lot more important in this period of time that pop girls were able to appeal to men, which is interesting because men were never going to buy the records, right? Men were never going to say the music was good. They were only ever going to say the girl was hot. But sex sells, as we all know. And Tattoo, a very confusing and perplexing phenomenon if you're not aware of them. These are two Russian girls that were essentially billed as a homoerotic duo. Like they would sing these very sexually charged duets about wanting to be together and not being able to be together, like very LGBT coded songs, but they were not, in fact, in a relationship. They had separate relationships with men. They went on to marry men. I think there is like a group of people that think that they were together that whole time. I don't blame you for thinking that because of the way that the Carry On went. Like you watched the All the Things She Said music video and tell me that that wasn't deliberately marketed to be homoerotic. That was their whole appeal. That was the whole purpose of them as a group, was to appeal to the male gaze in that way. It ended up being very iconic for, the gay and the closeted, amongst us, but it wasn't made for us. Like it wasn't created for our gaze, which is a very interesting way to go about thinking about Tattoo and what their legacy is. They have also since had like a cataclysmic falling out. They are not on good terms anymore. They have gone back and forth taking shots at each other, which I think is why a lot of people think there was some sort of romantic tension there. But either way, there are some great songs on that record. There's All the Things She Said, iconic. I mean, show-stopping, never been done before. Who can argue? All the Things She Said, if you haven't heard it, iconic song and a really, really iconic music video too. Not Gonna Get Us, that's another really great LGBT coded song. And they have this bizarre, and I mean bizarre, cover of How Soon Is Now by the Smiths. It is so bad it's good. It's kind of like Hillary and Haley Duff's cover of Our Lips Are Sealed. So I think it's kind of iconic, but what kind of impact does it have on the culture? I wouldn't say that it's still relevant, but I also don't think that no one cares about it. So I'm gonna let you finish because it's such a particular document of its time. Corinne Bailey Rae's self-titled album. Something that I noticed when going through this list was how many one-hit wonders got to have best-selling albums. It was crazy back in the day what one really good hit single that got pushed by a label could do for you. Now, if you even know the name Corinne Bailey Rae, you know it's for the song Put Your Records On. Girl, put your records on. Tell me your favorite song. A lot of people think that song is corny, but that song can still put a smile on my face. You know when I want to listen to that song? On a Sunday morning, late in the morning before it becomes afternoon, I'm reading a book or I'm cleaning the house. I want to hear Put Your Records On. This song just puts me at ease. And it was a very specific kind of like hippie, go with the flow, be carefree and natural and down to earth. That was another kind of flip side of pop music. I guess I would kind of call it like folk pop, alt pop, what Nelly Furtado was initially doing before she did her loose transformation. Do I think that this is a relevant album? Absolutely not. No. But, Put Your Records On is an indelible song, but I think I have to put it into Who Cares as a body of work. It's crazy that it's one of the best-selling records of this period of time. There are other albums by other artists here, for example, Blackout, that don't make the top 100 list that are so relevant. And obviously we're going by sales, right? We're not going by impact. That is a completely different metric. I just used sales to kind of help narrow down what I was going to be talking about. And it gave me some surprises. Up next, we have the Simpson Sisters, two of the most untalented divas to ever grace the airwaves, to take up so much space and time in the public imagination. I was actually introduced to both Ashley and Jessica via Ashley Simpson's MTV show that was about autobiography, creating her album. That's how I was introduced to Jessica. I think a lot of people found her the other way because she has a song on autobiography called Shadow, which is about living in the shadow of someone else's dream. These girls are profoundly untalented. I mean, Jessica Simpson has something, but she is like a wildly untrained vocalist. She's like Christina Aguilera if she had a lot less talent. That video of her performing at the Dolly Parton honors ceremony, oh my God. Jessica Simpson, you put a mic in front of her and she would scream and scream and scream. And then Ashley kind of had the opposite problem. You put a mic in front of her and she would play the track. And then she got caught on SNL lip syncing. And then that caused a whole thing. And then she had to sing live for every performance ever since, which was to her detriment because Ashley Simpson, mark my words, cannot sing. That is her major downfall as an artist. The girl can't sing. You watch any of those truly live performances of Pieces of Me, and you will be shocked by how she cannot sing that chorus. However, Was it an iconic album? Absolutely. Who is she 100% indebted to, you might ask? Avril Lavigne. There would be no Ashley Simpson without Avril Lavigne. This was the time when they were launching their Avril clones, just like they launched their Britney clones. Jessica Simpson, they tried to do that to her to compete with Britney. They wanted their Avril clones to compete with Avril. And that's exactly what Ashley Simpson was put on this earth as a musician to do. However, this first record of hers, she has two records that I think are pretty decent or interesting, this one and the following one. So Autobiography has, I would say, 4 songs of note. It has Pieces of Me, which is one of my favorite Y2K pop songs ever. I am obsessed with that song. I remember for a music assignment in 5th grade, they made us like rewrite the lyrics to pop songs to be about like social justice causes. And I rewrote Pieces of Me to be about the ice caps melting and the polar bears not having a place to live. One day I will drop my recording of that because that song really could change the world. Greta Thunberg, you want to license this from me? I know you do. You want Why Don't the Polar Bears Have Anywhere to Live to the tune of Pieces of Me by Ashley Simpson. But that's neither here nor there. That song is so good. That is a timeless classic pop song. That chorus, the way she belts it out, that she could only do in a studio condition with auto-tune turned all the way up. We also have Autobiography from this record, which is a pretty good song. It's the title track. It is very angsty, and Ashley Simpson's whole thing was very like put on. This was very constructed. Just as Britney was very constructed, Ashley Simpson was constructed to look deconstructed, if that makes sense. Avril was a lot more authentic in that when she put out Let Go and when she did Under My Skin and when she did The Best Damn Thing, those were all styling choices that she made. No one was telling her what to do. Ashley Simpson was being told what to do because she just wanted to get out of her sister's shadow, which is another song on the record. This album also has one of the worst songs of Y2K, and that song is called La La. That is one of the worst songs that's ever been created. It is shrieking. It has some of the most disgusting lyrics ever created. It is try hard to the max. Like the fake punk allegations really should not have been thrown at Avril Lavigne, who was punk, and I will stand by that to the day that I die. Avril Lavigne rocks harder than anyone alive. Ashley Simpson really should have been catching that heat. There is a really iconic video of her getting booed after performing that, and she deserved it because it sounded horrible and the song sucks. So here she is. Ashley Simpson, where do I put her? See, it's iconic and she only has 2 albums, so it has to go. It's not still relevant. It's not still relevant. I have to put it in. I'm gonna let you finish. Damn, I'm being harsh on these girls. But you know what? We're trying to get to a standard of excellence. Jessica Simpson, speaking of someone who cannot live up to a bar of excellence. This is another album with just one really good song. Jessica Simpson, With You. If you want to see a deranged music video, watch the With You music video. Speaking of things that were created for the male gaze, Jessica Simpson's whole thing that she was marketed as, and she suffered a lot from this. This really was not entirely her fault. I don't think she was even really conscious of what was being done to her. She was so micromanaged by her father, and then she was so micromanaged by her husband, Nick Lachey, and then she, fell into a series of relationships with people that had the similar intent with her, and also record label executives kept trying to force Jessica to be something, but they never, I think, asked her what she wanted to be. So all of Jessica Simpson's like recording outputs are extremely middling and boring because there's like absolutely zero soul or like artistic integrity behind it. She just wasn't ever really given the opportunity to express herself in that way. And the one great song on this album, the album is called In This Skin. This is her most successful album. And the great song is called With You. That song is amazing. And that song really, this whole album was launched in tandem with this reality TV show, a pioneering reality TV show. Before there was the Kardashians, there was Newlyweds, featuring the Newlyweds, Jessica Simpson, struggling singer, and Nick Lachey, who was kind of a middling, irrelevant former boy band member at this point. And you know what? The song With You bangs harder than anything alive. And the song is really about being a relatable hot girl. This was the cool girl monologue from Gone Girl. That was who Jessica Simpson was like portrayed to be. The song opens with, "The real me is a Southern girl with my Levi's on and an open heart." And the music video is her doing a series of ridiculous things that are clearly designed to appeal to men, such as looking natural in a very tight-fitted white t-shirt and jeans with her hair completely done, glam full beat, but natural. Men would call it natural. She's eating barbecue wings with her fingers and like making a mess all over her face. It's really, the video is like shockingly, obviously created to appeal to men. And that does kind of strike it down a notch for me. There is another song on this record that makes me deeply uncomfortable called Sweetest Sin, which is about her losing her virginity with her husband for the first time. and the music video is like them romping on a bed in front of the ocean. It's really weird. When I think about the visuals that accompanied this period of time, it was interesting. If you dig into this album, there is not much to mine. It really is just the one song. I hate to say it, but it is just the one song. And we can't really be doing I'ma Let You Finish for one song. Maybe I'll put it in I don't know about all that because I can't go who cares because it's an interesting document and cultural artifact. So I do have to give it a little bit of props and respect. Adele, 19. I mean, let's put that into the blueprint, I suppose. I mean, it's Adele's blueprint for sure. At the time when Adele's 19, the record came out, Adele was like an unlikely mainstream pop star. She was like an overweight girl from the United Kingdom that sang these kind of like slow warbling songs, but she has this incredible instrument, right? And I think it was the incongruousness of her appearance and how she sounded that made her very fascinating to people. But this is a very interesting and solid debut record, and I think it sets Adele up for everything else that came after her. Chasing Pavements is an incredible song. But actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, did this really change anything about being a singer-songwriter? Did it introduce anything new? I'm actually going to say no because I think that someone else did it before Adele so that Adele could do this. I'm going to put it in still relevant because, I mean, Adele is still relevant. People still love her. She's still streamed. This song, Chasing Pavements and Hometown Glory, and this entire record is very beloved. So I'm going to put it in still relevant. I have to give props where it's due. It was also a crossover act. She broke through from the UK into the US. That is not easy to do. Not everyone can do that. Up next, Rihanna, A Girl Like Me. Now, I had someone in my DMs when I asked for unpopular opinions the other day trying to tell me that Rihanna was irrelevant and had no real footprint or impact on modern pop. I beg to differ. Rihanna is one of the most characteristic, soulful vocalists. You instantly know that a Rihanna song is a Rihanna song when you hear it. And the simple addition of her voice to a track can make it from like a middling, boring, kind of like average thing to being something that is really iconic and prolific and, show-stopping and a culture-changing moment, literally just by the virtue of her voice. So this album, do I think it's like front to back, iconic, iconic, iconic? Not really, but like this was the moment that Rihanna became a star. Unfaithful, Hello, a song about cheating, about being a woman that cheats in public and showing your guilt for it to an audience, being a young, beautiful woman singing about cheating on a man. That's not really a perspective that we had in popular culture at that moment. It was really more about men cheating on women and asking for forgiveness. But here in Unfaithful, which is a really complicated song, Rihanna's not really asking for forgiveness. She's feeling the push and pull between loving two people at the same time and not being able to deal with the deception of being true to herself. And there's a lot of subtleties and nuances in the songs that Rihanna selects to sing that make her choices very deliberate. SOS is also an incredible song. And it also sounded like nothing else that was on the radio at the time. It has this very like Euro disco, like Swedish element to it. And that was kind of not what Rihanna was initially billed as when you look at Pond to Replay and A Girl in the Sun. Is that what her first record was called? But A Girl Like Me, also the album cover, I mean, it's iconic. I'm going to put it in still relevant AF because I think that there is another Rihanna album that has the potential to be a blueprint. So I'll leave it there. Alicia Keys, this is the album with No One. What is that called? As I Am, I think it's called. Alicia Keys put out a lot of albums in the 2000s, and they are all pretty much in the top 100 best-selling records. So they are important, and she is a very integral fixture of this period of time. I think by the time this period of her career had rolled around, she had kind of done her big ones. So I actually would put this and the following record, The Element of Freedom. I'm going to put As I Am and The Element of Freedom into I'ma Let You Finish because they kind of each had like one big song. Element of Freedom had Empire State of Mind Part 2, which doesn't really count because the hit was the song with Jay-Z, and it had Try Sleeping with a Broken Heart, which is great, but do I think it really did anything or was a blueprint? No, she was kind of operating off of her own blueprint. So that and As I Am are going to go into I'ma Let You Finish. In fact, the Alicia Keys album that needs to go into the blueprint is her very first record, Songs in A Minor. Alicia Keys, when I was doing my research, because I was like, I haven't listened to these albums properly, so let me listen and let me also go through and read about like what kind of impact she had. I was not familiar with how prolific of a musician Alicia Keys is. She is such a talented, like virtuosic pianist and also composer. And she had a real, when she came out with this first album, there was a real classical influence to what she was doing, a Chopin influence to the R&B compositions, the soul music that she was creating. And she really kind of reinvented soul for a new generation. And there was something very groundbreaking about a young girl in her going out top, sitting at the piano and playing these like incredibly complex and beautiful and classical compositions, soundtracking the story of her life. And the songs that she was choosing to write, the stories that she was sharing were not really necessarily about love and heartbreak. They were about like personal struggle, inner strength, self-development, things that were really kind of like groundbreaking and very feminist. And, you know, I think Avril Lavigne would not be Avril Lavigne and would not have the instinct to be herself had Alicia Keys not come before her. Do I think that Avril is even aware of that influence? I don't know. But Alicia Keys as a songwriter is an incredibly important figure from this period of time. So I have to put her first record that has the incredible song Fall In on here, and that's where it is. Up next, we have two albums from one of the greatest artists who has ever lived, the dearly missed and gone too soon renegade Amy Winehouse. Frank, I'm going to put Frank in, I don't know about all that, because I was really never able to connect with that record as much. I know that it is like a technically excellent jazz record, but it just didn't hit me in the same way that Back to Black did. Back to Black is, I mean, it's up there for the best record of any male, female, pop, jazz, whatever you want to call it, best record of the 2000s. It had such a profound impact on culture, and Amy Winehouse's legacy as a person in the public eye is so interesting because she definitely suffered from like the Britney Spears effect of having people just being absolutely invasively obsessed with your life and cataloging your downfall. But something that she had that Britney didn't necessarily have was a really intense, life-threatening, and ultimately life-taking addiction. And I think that watching Amy Winehouse's story play out in public was a really important thing, I would imagine, even for someone like Demi Lovato, like just having someone who is so talented and so beloved by her industry and by the critics and universally, really, by fans, by critics, by everyone. Watching her struggle with these demons in public was really transformational, I think, for culture. And it taught us a lesson. What we did to Britney and Amy Winehouse, one would think for a period of time taught us a lesson about how to comment on women in the public eye. And the songs that went into Back to Black, I mean, it is such a shame that Amy never got to create again. But when you leave something as perfect as Back to Black behind, it's almost like she fulfilled her destiny and her mission with this one record alone. I mean, the self-awareness of a song like Rehab, the irony of that being the big hit from the album, the title track, Back to Black, Amy Winehouse's pen game was on another level. And this is because her intake of musical reference and influence was so broad, and she was really inspired by, you know, the jazz, the soul, the kind of musicians that you wouldn't necessarily think would inform a pop artist. And I don't think I would even call Amy Winehouse a pop artist. She was a popular artist, but the music that she made was certainly jazz predominant. And I mean, if you watch any performances of her live, she never sang a song the same way twice. Her talent is just, it's immeasurable. There are so many incredible songs on this record. Tears Dry on Their Own, You Know That I'm No Good. There is this addict self-loathing kind of coming through on it. The character that is drawn through the self-portraits that she shades on this record is so compelling and complex and endlessly relevant. So that is a blueprint. I would imagine that someone like Leve would have really looked to this record as a bit of a lighthouse in terms of how to create music that has a jazz influence that can appeal to younger people, because jazz is so often looked at as, like soul and Alicia Keys, something that is for older people or maybe like an extinct genre of music or for relevance wise. And Amy and Alicia, you guys are doing the thing. You're doing the damn thing. Ashanti. Now, this record was very, very important. Madeline has talked at length on the Lizard Review about what an icon Ashanti is. And I just have never been exposed to Ashanti at all. So I didn't want to not mention her, but that's a road of Y2K that I have not traveled yet. So I'm putting it in. I don't know about all that, and I will revisit it at a later date. Speaking of things that I will revisit at a later date, just kidding. I'm going to revisit this now. I'm going to revisit it tomorrow. I'm going to revisit it yesterday. The Best Damn Thing by Avril Lavigne. Now, the blueprint card is really going for her between The Best Damn Thing and Let Go. The Best Damn Thing is, I think, one of the most interesting and successful rebrands or era shifts of a pop girl in the 21st century. Taylor Swift, I think, would not have been so emboldened to radically change her image from time to time had Avril not been doing this, because Avril's image evolution from Let Go to Under My Skin to The Best Damn Thing is shocking. I mean, the jump from Under My Skin to The Best Damn Thing, even just looking at those two album covers, it's totally different. In a way, Avril was kind of, with The Best Damn Thing, she was going blonde. She was dressing in a really more feminine way. She was growing up and, embracing her womanhood in a way that still felt very true to her. She was still wearing Converse on the red carpet, for example, with her gorgeous dress. So the thing about Avril is that she marched to the beat of her own drum, and she lost a lot of fans with this evolution. She gained a lot of new fans, a younger audience, but the people that probably would have stuck around with her and really appreciated her musicianship fell off with The Best Damn Thing. But it definitely didn't destroy her career. It took it in a completely different direction, and I would say probably kept her relevant in a way that someone like Michelle Branch wasn't able to, because she didn't evolve with the times. A song like Girlfriend, coming from someone like Avril Lavigne, whose last single was, what was her last single from Under My Skin? Was it He Wasn't? That's kind of a drastic shift, no? Going from He Wasn't to Girlfriend, that bubblegum pop thing. But there was this hard edge to The Best Damn Thing. It was not bubblegum pop, very importantly and crucially. If you listen to a song like I Can Do Better, she is the mouth of a sailor, and she is letting it rip on this record. Unfortunately, Dr. Luke was a pretty significant collaborator here, but I choose not to see it because, we didn't know at the time that he was one of the worst men created in the history of the world. But Avril's entire creative direction for this album all came from her. And that is something that I really appreciate about these first three records of Avril's. She really never let the label tell her what to do, ever. And I don't know how she got away with it. She had this relationship with Arista, which eventually ended up changing. I can't remember who I know the name of the guy who was her, L.A. Reid, there he is. L.A. Reid. She had a very good relationship with L.A. Reid where they established off the bat when he signed her, he understood that when he met Avril, that the best thing for him to do to help her sell and make money for the label was to let her do her own thing. They had enough constructed plants, and they really needed someone to just kind of come in and do what felt cool to them. This was also probably Avril's most produced album. She had her biggest budget. Definitely the tour was completely different. So it was a blueprint, but I think I'm going to put it in still relevant because, again, I think that Let Go might just have to take the cake for that. Beyoncé, B-Day, the blueprint. Immediately. I put B-Day here because I think that this is one of Beyoncé's most accomplished, artistically speaking, albums. Its length is so concise, it's so brief, it is front to back, and it is also kind of a risk and kind of different to what other people were doing at this period of time, 2006, 2007. It definitely leaned kind of more heavily into her urban roots rather than going in that really pop direction. I would say that Dangerously in Love, which we will talk about in just a second, actually, they're probably about the same kind of in terms of genre-wise, I guess. But what I know about the creative process of B-Day is that Beyoncé was way more hands-on and involved with this process. And this is when she really started doing her, I'm going to put all of these different producers and writers in different rooms, and I'm going to go between them, and I'm going to go into this room and say, I like that line and that hook, bring it over to this room and insert it into this song. This is when Beyoncé's curatorial, her authorship of her legacy really started to come into effect. And I think this was the perfect balance of an album that had weird, interesting experiments. Ring the Alarm is a freakish song. That is a weird song. You would not make that a single of an album in 2025, I don't think. That would not be one of your go-to singles for a big pop star. There was that. But of course, she balanced that with Irreplaceable, something that is a natural, written by Neo, a natural fit, something you could imagine a Good Girl Gone Bad Rihanna singing. And then of course we had the lead single, Deja Vu, which when I look at it in hindsight, I guess really was constructed to be the sequel to Crazy in Love because it has that Jay-Z verse too. But Deja Vu, I think, is leaps and bounds better than Crazy in Love. I think it's in the running for being one of Beyonce's best songs of all time. That homecoming performance of it, oh my God. And the Beyonce experience, the tour that went with this album, Freakum Dress, Green Light. This album, it's in different areas. It really is in different areas. And I think that it established Beyonce as a generational talent. And I also think that it is such a clear execution of a vision. And well done, Beyonce. Well done, Beyonce. So that is my Blueprint album. And there are two more Beyonce albums I want to say. Kelly Clarkson, Breakaway. Now, here's the thing about Breakaway. Breakaway wouldn't exist without Under My Skin and Let Go. So is Breakaway a blueprint in and of itself when it is following the blueprint of someone else? I mean, the literal title track of Breakaway, the first single that introduced it to the world, is a song written by none other than Avril Lavigne. I'm telling you, her tentacles are all over this decade. So Kelly Clarkson, I mean, now I'm trying to argue with myself. So Since You've Been Gone is not like an Avril Lavigne song. That is a very uniquely Kelly Clarkson song because only Kelly Clarkson can sing that song. And it is also a Max Martin and Dr. Luke collaboration. And I think that that was a way for Max Martin and Dr. Luke to collaborate that didn't involve like a Britney situation. They needed a real rock chick. They needed a singer to come in and sing that song. And Kelly Clarkson came in and sang the damn song. She didn't write that song, I don't think, but she wrote Behind These Hazel Eyes, which is one of the best pop punk songs of this era. And I think that it's actually better than Since You've Been Gone. I prefer it at least. It is very morbid. It's very macabre. It's very melodramatic. There is something so performative about it. But Kelly Clarkson as a vocalist really stood out with these songs. And Since You've Been Gone is a generational hit. Like, come on. There was nothing like it. There's the story. Max Martin heard the yeah, yeah, yeahs, heads will roll and said, it's really annoying that the song doesn't take off. What if we could make a real chorus? And they had Kelly come in and she changed it. This song wouldn't be the success that it is without her voice and her vocal delivery. Breakaway also, I think, in a certain sense, was a blueprint for how an American Idol contestant could break through the mainstream and become something bigger than just a reality TV show contestant. They were really American Idol winners looked down upon at this moment, and they were thought of as, fads, people that wouldn't last. That was very true for many of them. But also, we've had a lot of successes come from these inorganic talent shows, from the X Factor as well. So in a way, actually, I guess this really was kind of a blueprint for the next generation of reality TV show stars that wanted to become actual musicians in their own right. And it's important to remember that this was not Kelly Clarkson's debut record. She had a record that came out that was very successful, also on this list. I think it was number 100, actually, Thankful, which came out before Breakaway, that didn't give her the same penetration and didn't solidify her really as a force to be reckoned with in the music industry as a seller. And Breakaway did. So I'm going to put it in blueprint. I really am, because she did something different. Britney, Britney, Britney. I mean, she owned this decade. Who was doing it like Britney Spears? We have, I think, 4 Britney Spears albums here. One more iconic than the next, to be honest. Now, since I'm trying to restrict myself to only one record in the blueprint, I fear that I'm gonna have to give it to Oops, I Did It Again, because it is the number 2 best-selling album of this period of time. Number 1 is Norah Jones. That gags me, but we'll get to that when we arrive at Norah Jones. Number 3 is Avril Lavigne, I think, with Let Go, and number 2 is Oops, I Did It Again. This was just a blockbuster. It was building off of what we had with Baby One More Time. Oops, I Did It Again had Stronger, it had Lucky, it had Don't Let Me Be the Last to Know, of course, the iconic title track. That music video in and of itself, I think if you asked people to describe what Y2K was like, they would point to the Oops, I Did It Again music video, most recently referenced by Sabrina Carpenter at the 2024 VMAs. Like, this is never going away. Britney was the pop girl of the 2000s, so it's only right that she gets crowned here. And I'm just dithering between what album I want it to be. I think it has to be Oops, I Did It Again, because it sold so much. It had such a profound impact. People were really vibing with it when it came out. Then we have self-titled, Britney. I think this is an incredibly underrated Britney Spears record. And I think it was considered a bit of a commercial disappointment at the time that it came out, even though it wasn't. But, compared to Oops, I Did It Again, whatever she was going to follow Oops with was going to be a bit of a letdown. But I think that Britney really coming into her own as an artist. It was the first time that she really got to express herself, because Oops and Baby were definitely constructed and she was told what and how to sing it. And I think after that, she realized, okay, now it's kind of my responsibility to take control of it. Britney, the album, also spawned the best pop tour of all time, the most influential pop tour of that decade, the Dream Within a Dream tour. Do yourself a favor, if you are a scholar of pop music, you need to be familiar with the Dream Within a Dream tour, okay? It's very important. That tour supported this album. This album had very iconic moments. I'm a Slave for You. Hello, hello, knock, knock, knock. Everybody wanted to be Britney Spears. Everybody wanted to have a Britney moment. We had Overprotected, continuing the theme of Britney writing songs that addressed her public life, whether directly or indirectly. Lucky on the album before it, Overprotected here, and many more to come. Britney, I think, goes into still relevant. I'm Not a Girl, Not Yet a Woman. This was also the period of time when Britney was a movie star. Crossroads, another great movie that you simply must see. Carrie Underwood, Some Hearts. I kind of have to give this one to her. I don't know if I want to put it in the blueprint, because there's another country album by a girl that needs to go into the blueprint. I think that Some Hearts probably is still relevant because I guess Carrie Underwood kind of got there first before Taylor did in terms of like making country music young and fun again. She was the next Faith Hill, the next Shania Twain, I suppose. Even though she was never really pop enough to be a Shania Twain sort of figure, that was definitely Taylor's bag. But a Faith Hill, a Reba, that's certainly what Carrie Underwood was shooting for. And if I can be honest, she was another American Idol winner. Another American Idol winner. So she followed the Kelly Clarkson blueprint. I think she won like 2 or 3 years after her. And this album was a massive success. There are some good songs on this album. This was one of the two country artists that kind of made it to Singapore radio waves that I remember hearing. And Jesus Take the Wheel, that was my bag. I was obsessed with that song. It's so dramatic. It's such a story. It's such a country song. And that is the first country song I ever remember hearing, actually, was Jesus Take the Wheel. And I loved it. I loved it. Do I believe in Jesus? Not really. No, I don't. But Jesus takes the wheel whenever I'm behind the wheel of the car, which is never because I can't drive. But that's neither here nor there. Before He Cheats, another iconic, great song. Don't forget to remember me. You see how I'm pulling out these deep cuts? I'm pulling out these deep cuts. So I think it is still relevant because I think that someone like Kelsey Ballerini definitely came along. Megan Moroney definitely came along and, borrowed the Carrie Underwood, at least, style of introducing herself. So I have to give it to the girl. Tina. Okay, the girl who has always lived in Britney's shadow. It is true that every Christina Aguilera project, in one way or another, kind of mimics something that Britney has done. It's an interesting dynamic that they have, actually, because it's not like Christina was some flop that nobody cared about. She was Britney's most serious competitor, I suppose, launched at the same time when it was time for Best New Artist. Who won the award? Christina, not Britney. That was definitely not deserved. But, they were always in comparison and in conversation with one another. And the record that I can see most clearly being inspired by Britney for Christina is, of course, Stripped. And Stripped, I think, is a blueprint because Britney's sexuality, her coming into her sexuality, was a bit more gradual, but it was also kind of always there. Christina was a little bit more good girl from the jump, a little bit more, not a lot. I mean, genie in a bottle, rub it the right way. So Stripped was a very, very dramatic departure from kind of good girl, flirtatious, hinting at sexualizing myself into being like, I'm topless on my album cover, and the lead single of my album is a song called Dirty. I don't think it was the lead single, actually, was it? Who knows? But that was a shocking moment. Tina's evolution, literally being called Tina, as in X-rated Christina Aguilera, was something to behold and was a true moment, I think, for any pop girl that needed to do a drastic rebrand. So a Miley Cyrus Bangers definitely borrows from the playbook of Stripped. Selena Gomez has said as much that Revival was inspired by Stripped, so I think it has to go into a blueprint. It also has a lot of the iconic moments that we know and love Tina for. Fighter, hello, a lot of her over-singing, her crazy vocal acrobatics, beautiful. Her collaborations with Linda Perry, that was a very important songwriter that came into many pop girls' lives. The number 3 to Britney, Christina, was Pink, and she also worked with Linda Perry too. So the work that Christina Aguilera accomplished on Stripped was really interesting, and it was the first time that she had done a real album, a real era. Her hair, the entire rebranding of it all, the belly piercing, the nose ring, the fake tan, it was all very extreme and scandalous and thought-provoking. And up next, we went kind of in a different direction. So we have Back to Basics. And this is the Christina Aguilera album that I really remember loving. And it was two-sided. It had 2 discs. I remember, like Beyonce's I Am Sasha Fierce, it had 2 albums within it. And Back to Basics kind of had one upbeat side and one downbeat side. And Back to Basics was kind of like Miley's Younger Now, but much better, better music. It was an overcorrection, I would say, to the salaciousness of Stripped. It ended up being very, I'm a singer. Let me get back to doing what I do best, which is singing. And let me do a little bit of cabaret to keep it still a little bit saucy, but I want to keep it classy. You can see she's doing kind of her best Marilyn mug in the album cover and the bed sheets with the red lip. This album had a lot of iconic moments too. Ain't No Other Man. I think, if we're talking about Christina Aguilera's signature song, that is probably it. We also have Hurt, which I think is a great ballad. There's an excellent performance of that at the VMAs where she's singing it in kind of a circus vibe. And I think that was the music video too. There are a lot of iconic visuals from this period of time. And don't forget, music videos were so important to the success of an album. And also, a music video had a real impact because you didn't just watch it on YouTube once. It was on TRL. It was on the TV all the time. You would watch the MTV music video countdown and wait to see your favorite one again. You couldn't just stream these things on demand, right? You had to wait for them to be shown to you. So they had to pack a big punch. Candyman, Christina Aguilera. Hello, great, great, great song. Very good era, very good album. Do I think that it's still relevant? Yes, but I don't think that it's a blueprint. So I'm going to put that in still relevant because I think that the swinging between two polar opposites, Miley has definitely followed that playbook of going from like a strip to a back to basics over and over and over again. That is an interesting thing that can be accomplished by a pop girl. Britney Spears, Circus. This one, I mean, it's always difficult to talk about any of Britney Spears' albums post-Blackout because they were created under the conservatorship. And to what extent was Britney actually creatively involved, inspired by, or even interested in creating many of these works? We are not 100% sure. So the Circus Tour, wow, that was an iconic moment. This was also Britney's big comeback moment. Even though it was just released a year after Blackout came out, it was really considered as this big return to form after Britney had, flopped and failed in the public eye so dramatically. And it was helmed by a very big lead single, Womanizer. Of course, everybody knows and loves that song. Circus is an all-time great Britney Spears song. I have to give that to the title track. The rest of the album, as a statement album, it's one of Britney's weakest. There are even other albums created in the conservatorship that are stronger than this. Femme Fatale, for example, is a lot more front to back than Circus is. So I'm going to put Circus in. I'm going to let you finish because, we have a lot of Britney representation. Don't worry. Britney's going to get her flowers. On this channel, Britney always gets her flowers. Beyonce, Dangerously in Love. I mean, this was her solo moment. Everybody had been waiting for Beyonce to break out of Destiny's Child. It was never a matter of if, it was a matter of when she was going to become a star and be the solo artist. She had eventually become that in Destiny's Child anyway. All the memes about Michelle just kind of, being the third Jonas brother, like Kevin Jonas. I think that Dangerously in Love is a really iconic album. Naughty Girl, Baby Boy, Dangerously in Love, Crazy in Love. I mean, it's iconic. Is it the blueprint? No, because I'm putting B-Day as the blueprint, but I'm putting it in still relevant because it is, and it always will be. Destiny's Child. Okay, I have a couple Destiny's Child albums here. So how did I get introduced to Destiny's Child? I met Beyonce and I met Destiny's Child through the number one's greatest hits album. I remember so clearly getting that. There was a 3-for-1 CD deal, and I got that, and I think I got Dangerously in Love at the same time and something else. I don't know when all of these came out. I definitely got the number one's album after they had broken up already. I don't know if that was their last composition together, but that is like a compilation of all their hits. So I don't want to put that in the blueprint because it's a greatest hits album, but those songs are iconic. Say My Name, Bills, Bills, Bills. I wouldn't have been introduced to those songs had I not had this album. However, the albums that did come out in this period of time, we had Destiny Fulfilled. This album has Lose My Breath, one of the greatest running songs of all time. If you ever need a pick-me-up, if you need to run fast and you're feeling not very motivated to do so, turn on Lose My Breath and you will lose your breath by running so fast. Your legs will fall off. But as an album, I wouldn't say that it's the strongest Destiny's Child album by any stretch of the imagination. So I'm going to put it in, I'm going to let you finish. Survivor, still relevant, still relevant. I don't know if I want to put it into the blueprint. I guess something from Destiny's Child needs to go into the blueprint. But in that case, oh yeah, it's got to be Survivor. I'm looking at the track list now. Independent Woman, hello, Charlie's Angels, Survivor, Bootylicious, Nasty Girl. It has to go. It has to go. All right, here we go. It has to go up there. Survivor is also just an iconic song in and of itself. Dido. Dido. She had one song, White Flag, and it was a great song. My art teacher, when I was forced to go to art classes and I was dyspraxic and couldn't do anything, so I hated my life so much, she had an iPod mini that she would plug in and she would play U2 and Dido. Dido, it's crazy to me the amount of work you managed to get with the material that you offered, but I will go down with this shit. I mean, come on, it is iconic, but who cares? Sorry, Corinne Bailey Rae and Dido. Who's still talking about you now? Speaking of who's still talking about you, Duffy. Damn, these girls could really coast off of one song, Mercy, and Warwick Avenue. Duffy really, that was an Amy Winehouse LARP, now that I'm looking at it. She was really trying to do the old-timey thing with very little sauce. And you can't cook with no sauce, unfortunately. The Dixie Chicks, or the Chicks rather, at the time they were known as the Dixie Chicks. I met them with Taking the Long Way, which I also have on this list. But then we also have Home, which was their kind of like downbeat album between the period of time where they were doing Cowboy Take Me Away and Wide Open Spaces. That record has Traveling Soldier, which is one of my favorite chick songs of all time. It also has their cover of Landslide, which is one of their most popular songs and covers of all time. And it also has Top of the World, which is a song that I love. And I think that that album is very relevant to all of the country females that came after it. If you listen to Home and you listen to Debut, you will hear so much influence there. And I think it was a huge influence on Taylor. Taking the Long Way was iconic because of the moment that it arrived into. So Taking the Long Way is the album that was released after Shut Up and Sing, after the Chicks got canceled for not supporting the Iraq invasion and for criticizing George Bush. They really paid the price for that. And that's a subject that is covered on 2 albums by 2 different artists here, but we'll get to that. Taking the Long Way Round, other than Not Ready to Make Nice, which is one of the best songs of Y2K, is not that iconic, but because it has that amazing song, I'm going to put it in still relevant, actually, because that was one of our first instances of like cancel culture and someone clapping back through song to cancel culture. There's no look what you made me do without Not Ready to Make Nice. Hear that, receive that, understand that. There's no yes and without Not Ready to Make Nice, okay? Grammy Award winning. Home by the Chicks, I'm going to put it in the blueprint because I think that it was a very specific kind of mix of cover and songwriting and bluegrass. It was a very kind of down-tempo version of the country music they had been doing, which wasn't so popular for young, hot artists like them at the time. It was a little polarizing when it came out, but ended up being very reflected on as a great moment in their careers. KT Tunstall of Ugly Betty fame. I literally am only aware of her and this album because of Suddenly I See. And that, you know, when I was taking the Metro North from my college into the city to do my internship at Elle Magazine, I did listen to Suddenly I See every single day. And it did make me feel better about the fact that I wasn't getting paid and they weren't even paying for my train tickets. Fuck you, Elle Magazine. Okay, it's going into Who Cares though, because again, one song cannot carry an entire album. Up next, it's finally time for Rihanna's moment. It is her moment to go into the mother effing blueprint. Rihanna, Good Girl Gone Bad. Okay, this is the never-ending era. Okay, this era went on for a really long period of time, and it was marked by smash hit single after smash hit single. Rihanna could not lose at this point. She had built a lot of momentum with SOS and Unfaithful and Pon de Replay, and now she was getting access to the real hit makers, and Jay-Z, of course, was really putting her on. So the lead single of this is what? Umbrella. One of my favorite pop songs of Y2K. How many times am I going to say that about a song? But that really is one of the greatest of all time and something that I think people still associate very iconically with Rihanna and the kind of artist that she is now. There is something sweet, but also like sassy about it. I love that song. And then there's also Shut Up and Drive. Please Don't Stop the Music. That sounds like that song could have came out on a Brat remix album. Okay, that is an evergreen song. We have Rehab, and then of course we have Breaking Dishes, a deep cut that I love. And what's so interesting about the Good Girl Gone Bad era is that it, first of all, catapulted Rihanna into a different stratosphere of fame. This is when she was dating Chris Brown. She performed at the VMAs. She was kind of rubbing elbows with Jay-Z and Beyonce. Like she was really becoming something important to the music industry at this point and a real hitmaker too. She was all over the radio everywhere. And what I remember about Rihanna is I would spend my summers in Ireland and my life in Singapore, obviously. So for 8 weeks of the year, I would go to Ireland and then there I would hear what they would play on the radio. So that's where I got a little bit more exposure to people like Eminem, which I didn't want to have, but he was there. And I remember there was a summer where they were just playing Eminem and Rihanna. That was it. It wasn't the summer of Love the Way You Lie. It was before that. It was around the Good Girl Gone Bad era. I remember I got my first cell phone in Ireland and the ringtone that I bought and paid for to have was Shut Up and Drive. Yeah, it was. And this era was so iconic that it got extended with a deluxe reissue that breathed new life into the record. And also, I think even reissued another leg of the tour where they just added these new songs in. And the new songs were such big hits that it felt like the era just went on forever. And those big hits were Disturbia and Take a Bow. Disturbia is a weird, freaky song. Rihanna has a lot of those weird, freaky songs. Russian Roulette off of Rated R, which we're going to talk about in a minute, is another really weird, freaky Rihanna song. But Take a Bow, hello, you look so dumb right now, standing outside my house. Something very iconic about the clapback of it all. This is where Rihanna's like personality was really starting to come through as well, where she was becoming a bad Like she was becoming really iconic. She wasn't just like a little hit maker, Jay-Z's little protege, or the mini Beyonce. That was really how she was viewed at the time. She was becoming her own kind of thing. Swag is the word that comes to mind when I think of this period of time for Rihanna. So endlessly iconic. This is how a deluxe rollout should be. Rihanna also was the master of making an era last for a long period of time, and we love to hear that. Ciara, Goodies. Now, we have to throw Ciara a bone because Goodies, 1-2 Step, come on, great songs. The album itself, is it front to back? If we're really being honest with ourselves, it's not. And I don't think Ciara has very many front to back albums. So I'm going to put it in, I don't know about all that, but 1-2 Step, when that comes on at the club, I have my little tequila in my hand and I am 1-2 stepping. Britney Spears' Greatest Hits album. This was actually really quite iconic because that cover, I just have this CD in my mind. It like lived in my room and I would look at it all the time. Like the iconic Britney Spears midriff, the hair. I think this was Photoshop. There's a Photoshopped element to this that only became clear to me as I got older. But like the jacket, there is something so about this, and there were 2 singles from this that were not previously released that came with it that I think were very iconic. Her cover of My Prerogative by Paula Abdul literally outdid the original. I'm sorry. And also it was a perfectly timed cover. Everybody's talking all this stuff about me. Why won't they just let me live? This was as she was entering into her K-Fed romance and becoming a mother and really becoming a topic of conversation even more than she already had been. And then of course the iconic Do Something, which is one of my favorite Britney Spears songs and just has this this attitude, this enigmatic presence that I think is present on most of Britney's most plugged in songs. I'm going to put this in still relevant because it is still relevant and I'm still streaming and I'm still listening. Gwen Stefani, The Sweet Escape. Now it had 2 really iconic songs, Wind It Up and Sweet Escape. Wind It Up is another one of those weird Y2K songs. It's like What You Waiting For, but on crack. And it's actually not really pleasant to listen to. Yodelay, yodelay, hee hoo is not something I was really into from a pop perspective, nor was it something I was really looking for from Gwen Stefani. And I feel like we got our fill of the yodeling on The Sweet Escape. So it was like to have it on Wind It Up was weird. But the visuals for this era, oh my God, look at that album cover. Served in levels that previously unknown to man. That wig, that hair, the glossiness of it all, the way it looks almost plastic, the lightly tinted shades, the side profile, the gradient background, like it's so Y2K and it is really iconic. The Wind It Up music video, also, we have to give it to Gwen Stefani. She was in her visuals bag. This is when she was pulling references out of nowhere. I mean, what other pop star was using the sound of music as not only a visual reference, but also a sonic reference? High on the Hill with a Lonely Goat. I mean, she was basically following also the rich girl formula that she had taken before from LAMB. I guess I have to put it in still relevant because I think that The Sweet Escape is like such an iconic song. And Gwen was really doing her Gwen thing. So I have to give it to her. But when she was really doing her thing, when she was really in her bag and she was on top of the world is LAMB. That is a blueprint. One of the best pop albums of all time. She had a lot to prove, I suppose. She was coming from No Doubt. And again, they were waiting for her to go solo. They weren't wondering if she was going to do it. But I think at that point, everybody was like, how can it possibly be better than what she was doing with No Doubt? Because No Doubt was so beloved. And being a pop star at this period of time was looked at as something as very non-serious and as very degrading or demeaning. And Gwen Stefani had been able to occupy like a rarefied air where she was like a respected girl in a very anti-girl like part of the music industry. And she really revolutionized things with No Doubt. And her performance of herself in that band was so iconoclast. And LAMB was like an elevated adult version of it. Obviously, cultural appropriation queen. A lot of the theming of this album was surrounded by Harajuku, like the entire fashion and styling, like even what she's wearing on the cover. The cover in itself is kind of problematic. And she definitely used Love, Angel, Music, and Baby, her backup dancers, as props. She would literally have them in music videos, like not talking, just sitting there behind her like accessories. And you can see in the throne that she's sitting on here, they're like melted into the throne. They're literally objects on which she is sitting on top of like a conqueror. I mean, there are imperialist tones to what is going on there. But, you know, the music is so good and it was such an iconic era full of so many iconic visuals that we have to forgive. We have to clap and cheer. What You Waiting For? one of the greatest lead singles of all time. I mean, I have a whole TikTok about this. You should go and watch my LAMB kind of mini breakdown. I'm planning to do How to Murder Your Career Gwen Stefani edition soon, so I'll talk more about the brilliance of LAMB then. But Gwen Stefani was really pulling, again, references from many different areas. She was pulling from like urban street style. She was also pulling from her trips to Japan. Harajuku Girls is an incredible song. It really is. It's such a banger. And she was also kind of pulling from her like ska and rockish roots, but she was also looking at things like cheerleading for Hollaback Girl. The Cool music video is absolutely iconic. It's very old Hollywood glamour. She was in so many different bags on this album, and it is so unbelievably iconic. This is one of those albums that I remember getting and just playing over and over again, and it's front to back. It is front to back. Crash, luxurious, bubble pop electric. I mean, Gwen Stefani also has such a unique voice, and I think people were curious as to how that was going to adapt to a pop format, and she navigated that transition flawlessly here. I have to give it to her. Up next, we have the 3 Hannah Montana soundtracks, which I think are very indicative of the latter end of the Y2K trend, which was where teen girl music, like music made by teen girls for teen girls, was popular. Music that was made by teen girls that wasn't trying to capture an adult market. Like they weren't trying to Britney Hannah Montana. This was very much family friendly. So the 3 Hannah Montana soundtracks go here. Now, I'm inclined to say blueprint, but I don't think that anyone has been able to replicate what happened with Hannah Montana. And I also think that that specific Disney star-making vehicle is over. I don't think that's ever going to happen again. So is it a blueprint? And if so, which one is the blueprint? Because the Hannah Montana movie soundtrack is iconic. Actually, I know exactly how I'm going to do this. I'm a genius. I'm going to put Hannah Montana to Meet Miley Cyrus in the blueprint. Why? Because Disney very intelligently launched 2 stars with Hannah Montana 2. They reiterated that Hannah Montana was here to stay and beloved, and she was coming out with another album. But they also managed to expand the Hannah Montana brand by introducing Miley Cyrus as her own character and creating an avenue for her to go solo, for her career to live on beyond Hannah Montana at all. And the smart part of this was that, the front part of the CD was Hannah Montana, and you turn it over and it says Meet Miley Cyrus. It literally functioned as a gateway, as an introduction. It was like Hannah Montana was the bait and switch into the real meat of the matter, which was getting to know Miley Cyrus. Who is that outside of Hannah Montana? So that was a really interesting star-making vehicle, and I think that is a blueprint for sure. The soundtrack, I'm gonna let you finish. I mean, it's iconic. I love these songs. Who said Just Like You, the best of both worlds? I'm gonna put the movie soundtrack into Still Relevant because I think this is one of the best movie soundtracks of the Y2K era. And they don't do movie soundtracks like this anymore. But I guess they don't do movie musicals like this anymore, which is a shame. But Miley Cyrus, Hannah Montana, You'll Always Find Your Way Back Home, written by Taylor Swift. There's a lot of things. Crazier is on that album. There's a lot of things, Rascal Flatts, a lot of things that were relevant in the culture at the time going on in that movie. So we put it there. Hard Candy by Madonna. So my journey with Madonna in this period of time, my mom loves Madonna. So I was kind of plugged in. My mom fell off around the Hard Candy era. That's when it stopped being appealing to her ears, but that's when it started being appealing to my ears. So Madonna would never have evolved to Hard Candy if Aaliyah hadn't existed. Like if Timbaland hadn't come in with Aaliyah and broken into pop in a way to pave the way for something like Hard Candy. Hard Candy has some really interesting songs on it, notably 4 Minutes with Justin Timberlake. That is an iconic Timbaland production. It's a real sign of kind of the late Y2K era, and it's kind of actually really the last kicks of Y2K before it really went into like the Kesha territory and became something different. So Hard Candy as an album, I don't think it's that iconic. So I'm going to put it in I'm Gonna Let You Finish. Don't worry, there are other Madonna albums going elsewhere. Hilary Duff. Now, Hilary Duff was the blueprint that Hannah Montana followed, I suppose. So in terms of a blueprint for launching a Disney artist, I think we have to put Hilary Duff's first album, Metamorphosis, into the blueprint. Listen, it's difficult to launch a girl that gives nothing. It really is. Hilary Duff, much as I love her, I'm a Hilary stan. She frequently gave nothing. She almost never sang live. The music was hit and miss. Metamorphosis was actually really good. Come Clean, So Yesterday, these are songs that, bros were jamming out to. Everybody was bumping So Yesterday. And those music videos are such a time capsule of Y2K in and of itself. Hilary was such an it girl. She was like the safe version of Britney Spears, like the safer family version of Britney when Britney started going off the rails. And unfortunately, Hilary's sophomore album is horrible. It's self-titled. It's called Hilary Duff. The lead single is called Fly. I listened to this again the other day and I was like, damn, this sucks. it sucks. And the only reason why it's one of the best-selling albums of this decade was because it was Hilary Duff and Lizzie McGuire and all of this. But damn, this is a bad album. Not a hit from it. Not a single hit from this. Her next hit would come from her greatest hits album, which came after just 2 albums. Can you believe that? I'm putting it in I'm Gonna Let You Finish, but I might have to put it in I Don't Know About All That. I don't know about all that. There was an iconic song about her feud with Lindsay Lohan called Haters on this. And the lyrics are haters, traitors to the human race. Haters, what a drag. What a waste. I'd like to see them disappear. They don't belong anywhere. Haters. So absurd, ridiculous, but I loved it. I did love it. And we've circled back around to the one and only Beyoncé. I Am Sasha Fierce. Still relevant. Still relevant. I'm not putting it in Blueprint because I don't think that this was Beyoncé's most creatively challenging or even commercially successful. Maybe it was one of her most commercially successful albums, actually. What am I talking about? This album had Halo. This album had If I Were a Boy. This album had Single Ladies. This album had Sweet Dreams, another freaky Beyoncé song that I love. Do I think that it is one of Beyoncé's best albums? Probably not, but I think it mainstreamed her in a way that maybe B-Day wasn't able to because it was a little bit more experimental. Obviously, we had Irreplaceable and Deja Vu was a moderate hit, but I Am Sasha Fierce was very intentionally sold to us as this is who Beyoncé is. Like it was, I am Sasha Fierce. And Sasha Fierce was, the person on stage that's doing Crazy in Love. But then you have Beyoncé, the real Beyoncé, doing If I Were a Boy and doing Halo. Strategic vulnerability, okay? The parasocialism of it all. That was smart. Susan Boyle, I Dreamed a Dream. It's there. It's on the list. Higher than a lot of your faves, I have to say. Who cares? I'm sorry. Who cares about Susan Boyle? Congratulations, she dreamed a dream. The dream came true, and we've moved on. Pink. We're finally getting to Pink. I'm Not Dead. I'm Not Dead is so good, man. It's so good. But I don't think that anything Pink has done has really been a blueprint because I really do a little bit view her as always in the shadow of Britney and Christina. And even at this point, in the shadow a little bit of Kelly Clarkson, because Kelly Clarkson kind of stole Pink's wig and did it better than her. But I'm Not Dead is very good. I'm Not Dead has a theatricality, a performance element to it that would become very essential to Pink's live performances, especially You in Your Hand, Who Knew, Stupid Girls. Stupid Girls is a really misogynistic song. We don't need to be celebrating that one in 2025. Dear Mr. President, that's a great song. And that is a song critiquing the Bush administration and what happened to the chicks. An incredible song, actually. That song alone is making me want to put it in Blueprint. But I fear, I don't know, you know what? It's called I'm Not Dead. And there had been a period of time where Pink wasn't really a hit maker and she'd taken some time off and she came back with this blockbuster album. Like this album really was huge. I loved this record. I was spinning it all the time. Maybe I do need to put it into Blueprint in terms of like a reinvention. And also it's like, I guess it's a bit of a reputation moment. I'm not dead. Like, by the way, I'm still here. You might say that I'm over, but I'm still around. Britney Spears, In the Zone. I want to put her in Blueprint, but I'm going to put her in Still Relevant. If Blackout was here, Blackout would be alongside Oops in the Blueprint. In the Zone definitely borrowed from Aaliyah, and it also took a lot of like more of the urban sounds and introduced them to Britney's soundscape for the first time in a long time. And Britney was definitely ahead of the curve in terms of like white girls doing this to their music. It would take Madonna like 5 years to follow along with that trend. But In the Zone is very experimental. It's in different areas. There are a lot of freaky, weird songs. Early Morning is strange. Shaking My Ass Early Morning. Toxic is a bizarre, cross-cultural, like Indian, Bhangra, hip-hop, pop extravaganza. There's a lot to love on In the Zone. And I kind of want to put it in Blueprint because I do think that it inspired a lot of the pop girls to not play it so safe and to be a little bit cooler. Britney really wanted to be cool when she was creating this record. She wanted the record to sound like what she was listening to and what she was hearing out in the world. So I'm going to put it in Blueprint. Why the hell not? J-Lo, who cares? You will never catch me giving J-Lo flowers on this channel. No, never. I refuse to acknowledge her legacy as a musical artist because I think it was all stunt marketing. I think that she has like 3 big songs that are not good, that she had very little involvement in, and they're also not good because of her. I'm a J-Lo hater, okay? So if you're coming here for J-Lo appreciation, it's not happening. One of the Boys by Katy Perry. It's not a Blueprint. Unfortunately, it is not a Blueprint. Although, do I want to say it's a Blueprint? A lot of people are comparing a Sabrina Carpenter, even a Chappell Roan, to the theatricality and the antics and the silliness of Katy Perry. There's a humor to One of the Boys that definitely has been mimicked by others. I think Teenage Dream takes it to the next step, which is why if that was here, it would be in Blueprint, but it's not. It's in that category for my 2010s ranking. I'm going to put One of the Boys in still relevant because I don't think it's a blueprint, but I do think that it is still kind of getting referenced here and there. A very iconic visual album, too. It's not a front to back album, unfortunately. Some of those songs are rejects from prior record deals that she had, and it really shows when you listen all the way through. But the good songs are great songs. Waking Up in Vegas, classic. Hot and Cold, classic. I Kissed a Girl, classic. Thinking of You, which is having a very timely resurgence on TikTok, also a classic. Shakira, Laundry Service. Now, which Shakira album am I going to put into the blueprint? Oral Fixation or Laundry Service? I think I'm going to put Laundry Service in still relevant, or I'm going to let you finish because if I can speak my truth, it was just Whenever, Wherever. I don't remember any of the other singles really making noise in Singapore. Okay, I could be wrong about that. This is another artist that really didn't cross my mind until she like fully crossed over into English music. So not really sure about Laundry Service, but Whenever, Wherever, don't get me wrong, it's iconic. Leona Lewis. Again, what these flops can do with just one song is crazy. But Leona Lewis did kind of have more than one song. She also had Better in Time. So she had Bleeding Love, of course, another X Factor winner, a talent show contestant that hit it big. This was a bizarrely huge success in the United States. Leona Lewis, like this album was big. So it is kind of, I'm curious as to how the bag was fumbled so greatly for her next record. I need to look into that. Maybe make a TikTok about that because that is an interesting subject. But are we still thinking about Leona Lewis? No, but we are still saying congratulations, Bleeding Love, best song ever made. Avril Lavigne, Let Go, the mother effing blueprint by the mother effing princess. I mean, come on. This was one of the first times that a young girl was allowed to go into the studio and call the shots and really dictate almost everything about her album. The only thing she was forced to do was work with the Matrix and come up with Skater Boy, Complicated, and I'm With You, which of course are the songs that carried the record. But they are still songs that Avril was heavily involved in and reflected who and where she was in her life at that time. Like the album cover, everything about this record is so perfectly produced. And there is, of course, like an intervening hand here. She is definitely stage managed. She is definitely produced, but they managed to really grab Avril's essence and not lose her in the product marketing of it all, which can happen, I think, when you don't properly execute someone's vision. And I think that Avril never felt like, even when she was being manipulated by her label. So that always allowed her to feel very authentic. And then, of course, they couldn't get her to show up on the red carpet wearing makeup. She wouldn't do anything with her hair. She had that ugly straight middle part. She had her black eyeliner. She was wearing a studded belt and a tank top and sweatbands and a necktie. And you were not going to get her to get in a dress, and you were not going to get her to lip sync. They tried many times. She probably should have at certain points, but she didn't because she was rock and roll. She was rock and roll. She was living the dream and she was happy about it. And she was the blueprint for so many girls to come. Everybody has referenced Avril Lavigne. She was a blueprint for Taylor Swift. She was a blueprint for Olivia Rodrigo, for Billie Eilish. It's hard to overstate Avril's impact. And I really do feel as though she is not given her flowers often enough, which is why you'll always catch me doing that on this channel. Loose by Nelly Furtado. Oh my God, the blueprint. This is how you transcend being a really boring artist with really boring songs and you become a global, worldwide phenomenon. Okay, let's look at her other album. I think it's Whoa Nelly. I'm like a bird. Boring. Nobody cares. Who cares? Other than that song, actually, because that song was huge, I'll put it in. I don't know about all that. Loose, this album, I remember it so clearly. There was also a deluxe edition that had like a blue variation of the cover. This album was so good, and it had an incredible run of back-to-back singles. Nelly Furtado was all over the radio for like 2, almost 3 years with this record. That's how big it was. We had Maneater, iconic. We had Promiscuous, featuring Timbaland, I believe. Yes. We had Say It Right. We had All Good Things Must Come to an End. This record cycle, oh my God, it was everything. And that was purely by virtue of like how good the music was alone. It wasn't like Nelly Furtado was a particularly interesting artist. She wasn't the prettiest artist. She wasn't the most salacious or like out there or private life on Front Street kind of person. But the music, that album was just so good and so exactly what everybody wanted at that period of time that it kind of boots the house down. Say It Right is one of the Nelly Furtado songs that has not had a resurgence that I think really deserves it. And also, I think my personal favorite is Maneater. Madonna, Confessions. I'm going to put that in the blueprint because like that's how to be a legacy act, to be someone that others may consider to be too old to be relevant and still in the game. This is how to come back and make your moment your own again. Madonna's use of a sample with Hung Up was crazy. Her entire like disco rave influence here was iconic. The hung up music video is amazing. The leotard, the spandex, the hair, the specific hue of the hair that she had. I remember quite clearly her surprise Coachella performance of this era. And you should watch it on YouTube. They restored it in like 4K. It's like a handy cam video. I remember watching it on YouTube when I was a little younger. That performance is so cool. Madonna was really like at the forefront of Y2K, like I'm gonna have an iPod in my music video kind of thing. Like she was actually way ahead of the other girls that were being, contemporary artists at the time. Hung Up is amazing. Sorry is really good. This is artistically a really full and interesting project from an artist that was not yet done evolving in interesting ways. So I have to give Madonna her flowers. There would be no Lady Gaga without Madonna. There would be no pop without Madonna. Really, she was the blueprint for everyone. Mariah Carey, The Emancipation of Mimi. A blueprint. A blueprint. This is kind of like Pink's I'm Not Dead, a comeback album. An I'm still relevant and I'm still here and you're still going to listen to me. You tried to call me crazy. You tried to tear me down. You tried to tell me that I wasn't one of the greatest songwriters of all time. And I came back to inform you that you were wrong. We belong together. Weddings, graduations, birthdays, funerals. They play it in the morgue, okay? Dead people are hearing this song. We Belong Together is, I think, probably, I would say Mariah Carey's greatest song of her entire career, but I remember so clearly hearing it on the radio for the first time, and when it gets to that final chorus being like, oh my God, who is this lady? She can really sing. Because again, for the first time that I met Mariah Carey, it was through this album. It was through It's Like That, it was through Shake It Off, it was through We Belong Together, and that was how I was introduced to her. It's interesting because a lot of these artists that technically were not new when I discovered them were being received by a whole new generation as new because they had created something that felt really current and was really present and in keeping with the times. And that's how you stay relevant. This is like Taylor creating Midnights or Taylor doing the Taylor's Version project. Like that's how you onboard new fans and become relevant is you innovate and you do something different. And this was just such a moment for Mariah Carey. I mean, also that album cover, please. Legology, hairology. That tour was incredible too. She was serving body. The We Belong Together music video is iconic. I mean, Mariah. Mariah is the diva. And that's something I love about the Y2K era. It was the time for the diva. We have Beyonce, we have Rihanna, we have Britney, we have Mariah, we have Hillary. No, I'm kidding. We have so many like soulful, characteristic, like deeply unique artists here. Madonna, music. If you think about this influence of country music all over pop that we're seeing right now, Madonna did it first. Madonna took the Americana influence and made it pop first. This, of course, has the song Music and I think Don't Tell Me on it, which is a really great song. It's not as iconic as Confessions. I think it's a little bit more iconic than Hard Candy, so I'm going to put it in still relevant because we're still being threatened with Lasso, We're still hearing about new country projects coming out by pop stars, so we have to give credit where credit is due. Norah Jones. I'm sorry, I never got it. I was never interested in it, and it had almost no effect on anybody. Like, what did Norah Jones do that was different to what everyone else did? The only artist I can think of that is influenced by Norah Jones is Leve, and I would still argue that Leve is more indirectly influenced by Alicia Keys and by Amy Winehouse than she actually is by Norah Jones, because the Norah Jones music is boring, it's sleepy, and I think her album is the most successful album of all these albums, the best-selling one, and I genuinely think that's just because it was like background music. It was like easy to play. Like if you watched any sort of like Y2K soap opera or like romantic comedy, there was a Norah Jones song playing in the coffee shop. Like that just kind of was the vibe. So I'm not going to give her any of her flowers. Sorry. Vanessa Carlton did what Norah Jones did in a much more interesting way. Oral Fixation, Shakira. The blueprint. Come on. That's how you do a crossover. That's how you cross over from one language speaking market to another. I mean, Hips Don't Lie is a brilliant, genius pop song that combines all of Shakira's strengths. And also this album cover might take the cake for one of the best of all of them. All of these album covers are iconic, whatever happened to the art of the album cover, but the Shakira one with the forbidden fruit, she's Eve in the garden, she's got the forbidden fruit. There is something so sexy and also like clever and funny and sarcastic almost about this, but also she's very soft and she's very demure and mindful. Shakira, the woman you are. Also, Don't Bother, underrated Shakira song. That was like Shakira's Avril Lavigne moment, her guitar anthem. Great music video. Great music video. Up next, we have Pink with Misunderstood. I mean, Pink was a real punk. That was like kind of her thing when she came out, I guess, is that she was like very contemptuous. She had like a real profound disliking for the establishment. She was much more strong about that than Avril was. Avril was just kind of like, like I hate everything, but secretly she was very agreeable and a hard worker. Pink was a little more bratty. She was a little more chaotic. And this record, you know what struck me really when I was looking at this record again? Pink is kind of like the female Eminem at this period of time. She dressed like him. She kind of talked like him. She covered familiar subject matter, just like a pill, family portrait. Like there's a very Eminem coded shade to Pink that I don't like. Okay, I don't like. Get the party started. Do I think that this is still relevant now? It seems very, very dated. It seems very Y2K, but it is very iconic, just like a pill. But just like a pill is like Alanis Morissette cosplay. I don't know. I think I'm going to put it in I'm gonna let you finish. I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of that. Oh, but there's that Can't Take Me Home. I hate that record. There's nothing interesting about that. I'm putting that in Who Cares. You forget that that record even happened. Because of that, no, I'm still going to put Misunderstood in I'm gonna let you finish. But her album Funhouse, I'm going to put that in Still Relevant. You know why? Because Funhouse made Pink, it built off of I'm Not Dead and made her a real performing artist. It made her an acrobatic. This is when she started doing her flips, glitter in the air at the Grammys. That's when the torture started. And this is when it was still cool and unique and dynamic and so distinctly Pink. It didn't feel like a novelty. It felt like something that only Pink could do. And it felt, because Pink is also so talented, she's a very good singer, the fact that she could sing and flip around at the same time, if you can believe it, at one point, we weren't saying Pink get down. We were saying Pink get up. Pink get up and swing. And she was swinging. And also, there are actually some really good songs on this album. Sober is a great song. Please Don't Leave Me, great song. So What? I'm Still a Rock Star. I've Got My Rock Moves. Excuse me. I actually hear Olivia Rodrigo influenced by this. I do. And also, fun fact, What Do You Want From Me by Adam Lambert, originally a Pink song intended for this album. You can hear her version on YouTube, and it would have fit right in on this record. Funhouse, also a good song, and the theming of it was very circus-inspired. Rated R by Rihanna. I mean, Russian Roulette was the lead single from this. This was her first album post Good Girl Gone Bad, so it was always going to have a sophomore slump effect to it. It was always going to have an air of, how are you going to live up to this era that went on forever? How are you going to meaningfully reinvent yourself? She cut her hair. She got a mohawk. She was kind of trying to do the rock and roll thing, which was interesting. And she started out with Russian Roulette, which is a very weird kind of ballad, a peculiar choice for a first single. But treasures do lie on this record. There's a song called Hard on this album that is so good. And Rude Boy, of course. The thing about Rihanna is she's always going to give you 3 amazing songs, always. And I have to respect that about her. But do I think that Rated R is like still kicking around in our subconscious today? Probably not. I'm going to put it in I'm gonna let you finish. And now we get to the diva, Fearless and Debut. Now, which one is going to get the blueprint? This is an interesting question because if we want to do the blueprint for every female singer-songwriter, country artist, we do Debut. But also, Taylor Swift, the Debut, was so significant because Taylor managed to convince a fledgling label to take a chance on something that the entire industry said wasn't going to work. They said, nobody cares to hear a 16-year-old girl's story about her life. Nobody cares about that. And especially not in country music. So she was kind of working against a double negative. And by all measures, she proved them wrong. She identified a gap in the market that only she, Taylor Swift, 16-year-old girl, understood existed. There were like label heads who had years and years of experience and market research and all these datas and figures and relationships with radio that could not identify that what Taylor was doing was going to be the next thing. And what Debut did, Debut was a hugely successful album. At the time, it was a slow burn, but it is a hugely successful album now. And what it did really was like give female singer-songwriters the permission to sell their stories. It proved that there was an appetite in the market for stories that were told by and for young women, not stories that were told to young women written by a bunch of other, ghost producers and writers, that young girls themselves are the best people to speak to their fellow girlies. They understand how they communicate and operate with each other. And if Taylor had not done Debut, there would be no Fearless, and there would be no Olivia Rodrigo, there would be no Gracie Abrams, there would be no, you name it, there would be no one, basically. So I think I'm actually going to put Debut in the blueprint because of what it accomplished and because of how difficult it was for her to accomplish that and how against the odds it was for her to accomplish that. And I'm going to put Fearless in still relevant because it is, of course, still relevant. I mean, that is the crossover model. I think every genre artist hopes to have a love story, a You Belong With Me, a Fearless moment. This is when everybody kind of turned around and went, yeah, that's a pop star. That's a pop star. They were still saying she's country with Debut, but the you're a pop star, not a country singer allegations started with Fearless. It really started as early as that. So iconic. I've talked about Fearless a million times. We don't need to spend a lot of time here. Kelly Clarkson, Thankful. I don't know about all that. I mean, Breakaway was really her breakthrough. We had a moment like this, her American Idol winning song. We also had Low and Miss Independent, two great songs that wouldn't really become popular or known until they were tacked onto Breakaway. So, I mean, I guess it was a blueprint for releasing an album after winning American Idol for the first time, but it didn't change anything. It didn't change anything. The Diary of Alicia Keys. We already have songs in A minor in the blueprint, but I'm going to put this in still relevant because it built on songs in A minor. It fleshed out the stories. It told a lot of different stories. I mean, it also has If I Ain't Got You, which is one of the greatest songs of all time. I have to give it up. Fergie, the Duchess. This really reminds me, now that I'm looking at it, of Gwen Stefani's LAMB. They are actually so alike in that both of these girls were coming from a group where they had outsized roles and personalities. The Black Eyed Peas, as we know, are nothing without Fergie. Can't get a hit, can't go on tour. The Peabodys don't care about the Black Eyed Peas if Fergie's not there. And I think everybody was kind of wondering what Fergie was going to do. And it wasn't that far off from what she was doing with the Black Eyed Peas. Obviously, she continued her collaboration with will.i.am. But the flawlessness of the rollout of that record and the transition from being in a group to being a solo artist, it felt like Fergie had always been a solo artist by the time the Duchess actually came out. And this is pretty much a front to back record too. Again, it is so rare to have an album that has like 4 huge singles. We had Glamorous, we had Fergalicious, she invented her own word, we had London Bridge, and we had, what was the other one? Big Girls Don't Cry. The range of those songs too, to be able to come out and do a song as profane as London Bridge as your lead single and have your closing single, was it Clumsy or Big Girls Don't Cry? I don't know. But Big Girls Don't Cry showed another side of her as an artist. It is perplexing to me that Fergie managed to fall off so spectacularly after this, but she did. That is another How to Murder Your Career series that needs to come out. Fergie and Gwen Stefani, trust me, they're in the works. But it has to be said, this record was everything. I was obsessed with Fergie. I remember her performing this at the concert for Diana in 2007. Nelly Furtado also performed at that. Many legends were in attendance. We have 2 albums left. I think that's a Jennifer Lopez album. Yeah, so that's going straight into Who Cares. And the last best-selling album to talk about today is PCD by the Pussycat Dolls. Now, do I put it in a blueprint or do I put it in still relevant? Here's the thing. It's not like the market had been suffering for a lack of girl groups. We had just ended the era of Destiny's Child by the time that the Pussycat Dolls came along. The Pussycat Dolls was very much different in the sense that Destiny's Child was, I would say, more marketed girl power. And that's how we're kind of used to girl groups being marketed to us. I think TLC had an element of girl power too, Fifth Harmony, Little Mix, Flo, Cat's Eye, all of them have like a sisterhood, a solidarity thing. That's not what the Pussycat Dolls was. It was clear from the start that it was Nicole Scherzinger and her backup dancers that she maybe abused behind the scenes. Like, it was so clear that this was not an enterprise of women supporting women and women loving each other. Just the performance of Buttons at the AMAs where Melody is like dying to sing and like has to scream into the microphone to get some attention shows that, you know, this was not an enterprise about making women happy or succeed in life. And also it was really, you know, the Pussycat Dolls themselves, other than Nicole, were replaceable. They cycled in and out. Like, they were always rotating the lineup, which just showed you that there was no camaraderie there. And the fact that their reunion fell apart also shows that there was no camaraderie at all. But when I went to go look at this album, it is stacked with hits. Don't Ya? Beep. Buttons. I Don't Need a Man. That's my favorite Pussycat Dolls song. Wait a Minute. I hadn't heard that one in a while. With Timbaland, with Busta Rhymes, with will.i.am, they had all of the expert hit makers up on this project. I still don't understand why Nicole Scherzinger just didn't get a solo project. The Pussycat Dolls, as an idea, evolved from a cabaret show that was based in LA. The creator, I believe, of the Pussycat Dolls ended up being in the group. And she, I don't think, loved the fact that Nicole Scherzinger ended up being the star. She came in late and kind of took over the show. And she was not very nice to the people that she worked with. She was definitely a diva. And you can tell that in all of the interactions that she has with the public. But that's neither here nor there. Now, do I think that the Pussycat Dolls was a particularly good entity for like young women across the world? Probably not. This was definitely a male gaze enterprise, for sure. Don't you wish your girlfriend was hot like me? She's not speaking to the girls. She's not speaking to the girls. She tries to speak to the girls with I don't need a man, but then we immediately go back to loosen up my buttons, babe. So it's an interesting. Is it something new? It really kind of gives the Jessica Simpson music video I talked about earlier. It gives Pick Me, it gives I'm Not Like the Other Girls, but these are some of the best songs of Y2K. They are so good. And that is because of the production on them. And I have to give it to Nicole Scherzinger. She's an incredible singer and she has an incredibly talented way of delivering her lines. So do I want to put this in a blueprint? I don't know. It's, again, a blueprint for what? Like, who followed this blueprint really is what I want to know. If anything, they followed the Destiny's Child blueprint and made it regressive. And I don't even know that it's still relevant, but it's chock full of hits. So do I put it in I'ma Let You Finish? I'm going to put it in Still Relevant because I can't bear to put it in I'ma Let You Finish. All right, that is my final ranking. My blueprints of Y2K are Lady Gaga's The Fame Monster, L.A.M.B. by Gwen Stefani, The Duchess by Fergie, Aaliyah's Self-Titled, Songs in A Minor by Alicia Keys, Back to Black by Amy Winehouse, B-Day by Beyoncé, Breakaway by Kelly Clarkson, Oops, I Did It Again by Britney Spears, Stripped by Christina Aguilera, Survivor by Destiny's Child, Home by The Chicks. One of these things is not like the other. I got to take the Chicks out of there. I'm sorry, girls. Once debut came in, it was over. Good Girl Gone Bad by Rihanna, Hannah Montana 2, Meet Miley Cyrus, Metamorphosis by Hilary Duff, I'm Not Dead by Pink, In the Zone by Britney Spears, Avril Lavigne's Let Go, Loose by Nelly Furtado, Madonna, Confessions on a Dance Floor, The Emancipation of Mimi by the one and only Mariah Carey, Oral Fixation by Shakira, and Self-Titled by Taylor Swift. Those are my blueprints of Y2K. Let me know in the comments below what you think of this crop the blueprints were. Did I misplace anything? Can you make an argument for something that I didn't include in a blueprint that should be? Is there anything in a blueprint that you think, actually, that's more interesting, needs to be taken down? I want to know. Thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you on the Sneerist tour, evolutionofsing.com. Okay, bye.